If you're over 60 and you've been eating more protein, more chicken, more eggs, more protein shakes, trying to hold on to your strength, and you're still losing muscle anyway, I need you to hear this. It is not because you're doing something wrong. It's because your body stopped listening to protein the way it used to, and almost nobody explains why. Before we go further, one honest thing. This channel exists to help you understand your body better. Nothing here replaces your doctor. Always talk to your physician before changing your diet, your supplements, or your exercise routine, especially if you take medication or manage a health condition. Now here's what almost nobody tells people past 60. There's a real documented phenomenon researchers call anabolic resistance. It sounds technical, but it's simple once you understand it. When you eat protein, your muscles are supposed to use those amino acids to build new muscle tissue. That process is called muscle protein synthesis. In a younger body, this response is fast and efficient. But research published in the scientific journal PLOS One found something striking. Older men, even healthy ones, showed a muscle-building response up to 3 times smaller than younger men, after eating the exact same amount of protein. Not because they ate less, because their muscles simply stopped responding the same way. Let that sink in for a second. You could be eating the same protein you always have, doing everything right on paper, and your body is quietly using less and less of it to actually rebuild muscle. This is one of the most misunderstood parts of aging, and it's a huge reason why so many people over 60 feel like they're losing strength no matter what they eat. But here's the part that actually matters. This isn't hopeless. Once you understand why this happens, you can work with your body instead of against it. And that's exactly what we're going to break down piece by piece in this video. So let's get specific, because vague explanations don't help you. Here's what the research actually shows about how much protein your body needs after 60, and why the old advice falls short. A review published in the journal Frontiers in Nutrition looked at exactly this question. It found that older adults need roughly 68% more protein per meal than younger adults to trigger the same muscle-building response. In practical terms, researchers estimated that it takes around 40 grams of protein in a single meal for someone older to get the kind of muscle response a younger person gets from a much smaller amount. Think about that for a moment. If you're over 60 and you've been eating 20 grams of protein at breakfast, the amount in maybe 2 eggs and a bit of yogurt, your body might barely register it as a signal to build muscle at all, not because that food isn't nutritious. Because the threshold your muscles need to wake up and start repairing themselves has quietly moved higher with age. This is the part almost nobody explains clearly. It's not just about eating protein. It's about eating enough protein, concentrated enough in one sitting to cross that threshold. A little protein spread thin across the day, a few grams here, a few grams there, often isn't enough to ever trigger real muscle repair. Your body needs that meaningful dose delivered together to respond. So if you've been telling yourself, I eat protein throughout the day so I should be fine, this might be the missing piece. It's not just quantity across 24 hours, it's concentration, timing, and the presence of what nutrition scientists call essential amino acids, specifically leucine, in high enough amounts at the right moments. But even this isn't the full picture, because even when older adults eat that higher amount of protein, some research shows the muscle-building response still comes in weaker than expected, which raises an uncomfortable question. If it's not just about eating more protein, what else is going on? That's where things get more revealing, and it has almost nothing to do with what's on your plate. Here's the detail that changes everything. and it's uncomfortable because it puts responsibility somewhere most people don't expect. Muscle protein synthesis, the process we've been talking about, doesn't just respond to food. It responds to movement, specifically to resistance and load placed on the muscle. Research summarized by Physiopedia found something remarkable. Young, healthy adults, people with none of the aging factors we've discussed, developed the same kind of blunted response to protein, the same anabolic resistance, after just 10 days of reduced activity. 10 days, not months, not years, just 10 days of a body not being asked to work. Now picture what that means over months or years of a sedentary lifestyle after retirement, after a knee that started hurting, after a winter spent mostly indoors. The muscle isn't just getting older. It's getting less signal to respond, less reason for the body to prioritize rebuilding it. And that compounds with the natural slowdown that comes with age. According to the Cleveland Clinic and multiple aging research reviews, muscle mass typically declines somewhere between 3 and 8% per decade after your 30s, and that decline speeds up noticeably between the ages of 65 and 80. Some estimates suggest you could lose close to a third of your total muscle mass over a lifetime if nothing intervenes. Here's the part that should genuinely bother you. Most people respond to this by trying to eat their way out of it. More protein shakes, more chicken breast, more supplements on the counter. But if the muscle isn't being asked to work, isn't being loaded, isn't being challenged, then even a textbook perfect diet is fighting an uphill battle. It can't fully win alone. Before we go further into what actually works, if this is helping you understand your own body a little better, this is exactly the kind of thing we cover here every week. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and drop a comment letting me know if you've noticed this in your own life, feeling like you eat well but still feel weaker than you used to. I read every comment, and it helps me know what to cover next. Now here's the part most people never put together. This is the part that changes how you should think about this whole problem. It's not protein versus exercise. It's protein plus exercise working together or neither one doing much at all. A study published through Science Direct followed adults in their 70s, average age around 71, through 12 weeks of structured resistance training. The results were telling. Training increased their strength. It increased their baseline muscle protein synthesis. Their muscles became more responsive, more primed to use the nutrients they were eating. The exercise didn't just burn calories or build a bit of strength. It appears to have restored some of the sensitivity that anabolic resistance had taken away. This is the mistake so many people make, and I want to say this gently because most of us have done some version of it. You start worrying about muscle loss. You go buy protein powder. You add a shake to your morning routine, maybe switch to Greek yogurt, maybe start reading nutrition labels for the first time in years, and then you feel like you've handled it, like the box is checked. But if you're still sitting most of the day, still avoiding anything that challenges your muscles, that protein has far less to work with. It's like sending more raw material to a factory that isn't running its machines. The material doesn't get wasted exactly, but it's not building what it could be building either. This doesn't mean you need to become a bodybuilder at 65. It doesn't mean intense gym sessions 5 days a week. Research in this area has repeatedly shown that even moderate resistance activity, done consistently, appears to meaningfully improve how the body responds to protein. Think less extreme transformation and more regularly asking your muscles to do something a little harder than yesterday. Picture two people, both 68 years old, both eating the exact same diet, the same amount of protein, the same meals. One of them does some form of resistance activity 2 or 3 times a week. Bodyweight exercises, resistance bands, light weights, doesn't matter exactly what. The other stays consistently sedentary. Based on what the research shows over months and years, these two bodies are likely to respond very differently to that identical diet. Same fuel, completely different outcome, because one engine is running and one isn't. Let's make this practical, because understanding the MYs only matters if you know what to actually do with it. Based on what this research points to, there are a few adjustments that seem to matter most. First, the size and timing of your protein. Instead of spreading small amounts thinly across the day, research suggests aiming for a more concentrated dose at each meal, something in the range that studies have pointed to, around 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal for older adults. That might look like a serving of fish, chicken, eggs, cottage cheese, legumes, or a quality protein supplement, not spread out, but grouped together at mealtime, so your body actually gets the signal it needs to respond. Second, and this is the piece most people skip, some form of resistance or muscle loading activity, done regularly. This does not have to mean a gym membership or heavy weights. Research has looked at simple approaches, including resistance bands, body weight movements like sit-to-stand exercises, and light dumbbell work, done consistently, 2 to 3 times a week. The pattern in the research is less about intensity and more about consistency and progressive challenge, gradually asking the muscle to do slightly more over time. Third, and this one surprises people, don't underestimate ordinary daily movement. Studies on inactivity and muscle disuse suggest that simply reducing how much you sit, taking regular short walks, standing up more often through the day, appears to help preserve the muscle's ability to respond to nutrients in the first place. In other words, avoiding long stretches of stillness matters almost as much as any single workout. None of this requires perfection. It requires a shift in what you're paying attention to. If you've spent years focused only on what's on your plate, this is your sign to start paying equal attention to what your muscles are being asked to do, even in small, manageable ways. The two work together. Neither one alone tells the whole story of why muscle changes as we age. There's one more detail worth understanding, because it ties everything together and answers a question a lot of people ask once they hear all this. Should protein be evenly spread across meals or loaded more heavily at certain times of day? A randomized controlled trial published in the journal Clinical Nutrition looked specifically at this question in healthy older adults. It compared an even distribution of protein across meals against a more uneven, skewed pattern, where one meal, often dinner, carried most of the day's protein, while others carried very little. The findings pointed toward a more even distribution across meals being reflected in a better whole-body protein balance overall, compared to concentrating almost everything into a single meal of the day. This is genuinely good news if you think about it, because it doesn't ask you to eat more overall. It asks you to rearrange what you're already eating, shifting a bit of that dinner-heavy protein toward breakfast and lunch instead. A boiled egg or some Greek yogurt in the morning. A larger portion of chicken, fish, beans, or lentils at midday, rather than saving all of it for later. Small shifts, same groceries, potentially a meaningfully different result for how your muscles respond throughout the day. Taken together, everything we've covered today, the concentrated protein per meal, the resistance activity, the attention to daily movement, and now this even distribution across the day, forms a far more complete picture than just eat more protein ever could. Let me paint this out in a way that makes it concrete, because abstract numbers are easy to hear and forget by tomorrow morning. Imagine someone, we'll just call her a woman in her late 60s, who eats reasonably well. Oatmeal in the morning, a sandwich for lunch, chicken and vegetables for dinner. On paper, that sounds like a solid, health-conscious pattern. But look closer at how the protein is actually distributed. Maybe there are 8 grams of protein at breakfast from the oatmeal and a splash of milk, 15 grams at lunch from the turkey and the sandwich, and 25 grams at dinner from the chicken. Add it up, and the daily total looks completely reasonable, somewhere around 50 grams across the day. But based on what the research points to, none of those 3 meals actually crossed the threshold that appears to meaningfully trigger muscle repair in an older body. Every single meal came in under the effective dose. Now picture a small adjustment. Same total amount of food, roughly, but restructured. Eggs and Greek yogurt at breakfast, bringing that meal closer to 30 grams. A larger portion of protein at lunch instead of a light sandwich. Same appetite, similar effort. But now potentially 2 or 3 meals a day that actually reach the range research points to for triggering a real muscle response instead of 0. That's the entire idea in a nutshell. For many people, it's about reorganizing what they already eat so their body actually gets the chance to use it the way it's designed to. Add in 2 or 3 short sessions a week of resistance-based movement, and that's a meaningfully different trajectory than simply adding another protein bar to an already scattered eating pattern. There's another layer to this that almost never gets talked about, and it helps explain why some people seem to respond to protein and exercise better than others, even when they're doing similar things. Researchers have been studying what's sometimes called the gut-muscle connection. Published work in this area points to low-grade inflammation and changes in gut bacteria as factors that can worsen anabolic resistance in older adults. In simple terms, a body dealing with more internal inflammation appears to respond less efficiently to the same protein, even at the same dose, compared to a body with lower inflammation. Diets richer in fiber and overall gut health have been studied as one piece that may support a better muscle response, alongside protein and exercise, not as a replacement for either one. This matters because it explains something confusing that a lot of people notice. 2 people can eat almost the same diet and do similar activity and still see different results. Age is one factor, but underlying inflammation, gut health, sleep quality, and even chronic stress can all quietly influence how efficiently your body uses the nutrients you give it. This isn't about blame. It's about understanding that muscle health after 60 is genuinely multi-layered, not a single lever you can pull. Now here's a consequence of ignoring all of this that deserves your full attention. According to a report from Harvard Health referencing data from the American Society for Bone and Mineral Research, older adults with sarcopenia were found to have around 2.3 times the risk of a low-trauma fracture from a fall, things like a broken hip, wrist, or collarbone, compared to those without it. A fall that might have been minor for you at 40 can become life-altering at 70, specifically because there's less muscle to protect the joint, absorb the impact, and catch your balance before you go down. This is why this conversation is not really about appearance or even about strength for its own sake. It's about staying steady on your feet, staying out of a hospital bed, staying independent in your own home for as long as possible. Let's clear up a few myths, because I know some of you are watching this and mentally arguing with parts of it. That's fair. Let's go through the ones I hear most often. Myth 1. If protein isn't working as well, I should just eat even more of it. Not quite. The research we discussed found a threshold effect, roughly 40 grams per meal, appears to matter more than simply piling on protein all day long. Eating 80 or 100 grams in one sitting doesn't appear to double the muscle-building response. It's about hitting an effective dose per meal, not maximizing total intake. Myth 2. Resistance training is for young people or bodybuilders, not for someone my age. This is one of the most damaging misunderstandings out there. The 71-year-old participants in the resistance training study we mentioned earlier weren't athletes. They were older adults starting from wherever they were. And their bodies still adapted, building strength and improving their baseline muscle protein synthesis over 12 weeks. Age was not a barrier to their muscles responding to training. Myth 3. It's too late for me, the damage is done. This one deserves real pushback. Sarcopenia is described by researchers as something that can be slowed and in many cases partially reversed through the right combination of nutrition and activity, according to sources including the Cleveland Clinic. That doesn't mean every case is identical or that results are guaranteed, and that's exactly why a conversation with your own doctor matters before starting anything new. But too late is very rarely an accurate description of where someone actually stands. Myth 4. Supplements alone can fix this. Protein powders and amino acid supplements can be a genuinely useful tool, especially for people who struggle to eat enough whole food protein in one sitting. But no supplement replaces the muscle-loading signal that comes from resistance activity. They work best as a support to the full picture, not as a standalone solution. Now, I know some of you watching this are thinking, Raj, this all makes sense, but I haven't done any kind of resistance exercise in decades. Where do I even start? And is it even safe for me? That is exactly the right question to be asking, and it deserves a careful answer, not a generic one. This is precisely where your doctor or a physical therapist becomes essential, not optional. If you have joint issues, osteoporosis, heart conditions, or any concern about balance and falling, a professional can assess your specific situation and help design something appropriate or clear you for activities that make sense for your body. What's safe and effective for one person's knees, heart, or spine may not be appropriate for someone else's, and that's not something a YouTube video, including this one, can safely determine for you individually. That said, research in this area has generally found that starting points can be modest and still matter. Things like sit-to-stand exercises using a sturdy chair, resistance band movements done seated or standing, and short walks with a bit of incline or light hand weights have all been studied as accessible ways older adults begin rebuilding strength safely. The pattern that shows up again and again in this research isn't about how much weight you lift in week 1. It's about consistency, showing up 2 to 3 times a week and gradually asking a little more of your muscles over time, weeks, and months, not days. The protein side works the same way. You don't need to overhaul your entire diet overnight. Small, realistic shifts, adding an egg here, choosing Greek yogurt over a lower protein option there, can move your meals closer to that effective range we talked about, without turning your eating into something stressful or restrictive. Here's what I want you to walk away with. Losing muscle after 60 is common, well documented, and explained by real biology, not by some personal failure on your part. But common does not mean fixed or unchangeable. The research we've walked through today points to something genuinely hopeful. Your body's ability to respond to protein and to rebuild muscle does not simply vanish with age. It becomes more selective about what triggers it, and once you understand that, you can actually work with it instead of quietly wondering why nothing seems to help. The version of this that keeps people stuck is the one where they add another supplement, try another diet trend, and wait for their strength to come back on its own. Based on everything the evidence shows, that's unlikely to be the piece that moves the needle. The combination that actually appears to matter is deliberate, adequate protein at meals, and regular movement that challenges your muscles, even in small, realistic ways. Together, consistently, over months, not days. If you're in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, and you've noticed you feel weaker getting up from a chair, more tired after climbing stairs, less steady on your feet than you used to be, this is not a sign that it's too late. It's absolutely worth a conversation with your doctor about what's realistic and safe for your specific situation, especially before starting any new type of exercise or changing your diet significantly. If this video helped you understand your own body a little better today, that's exactly why this channel exists. Take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling me one thing you learned today, and if you know someone who's been frustrated wondering why eating healthy isn't translating into feeling stronger, send them this video. This content is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Please consult your doctor before making changes to your diet or routine, especially if you take medication or have a health condition. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.